Sometimes I feel like I don't have a partner. Sometimes I feel like my only friend is the city I live in, the city of angels. Lonely as I am, together we cry. I drive on the streets 'cause she's my companion. I walk through the hills 'cause she knows who I am. She sees my good deeds and she kisses me when I'll never worry, now that is a lie. I don't ever wanna feel like I did that day, but take me to the place I love, take me all the way. I don't ever wanna feel like I did that day, but take me to the place I love, take me all the way. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's hard to believe that there's nobody out there. It's hard to believe that I'm all alone. At least I have her love, the city she loves me. Lonely as I am, together we cry. Sing it with me, everybody. I don't ever wanna feel like I did that day, but take me to the place I love, take me all the way. I don't ever wanna feel like I did that day, but take me to the place I love, take me all the way. Cobweb afternoon in a room full of emptiness by a freeway. I confess I was lost in the pages of a book full of death, reading how we'll die alone, and if we're good, we're laid to rest anyway we wanna go. In your hearts I long to be. And on my deathbed, I will pray to the gods and the angels like a pagan, to anyone who will take me to heaven, to a place I recall. I was there so long ago. The sky was bruised, the wine was bled. Then you led me on, and yours I long to be, room by room, patiently I'll wait for you there, like a stone. I'll wait for you there, alone, alone. And on I read until the day was gone, and I sat in regret of all the things I've done, of all that I've blessed, and all in dreams until my death. I will wander on, and your house I long to be, room by room, patiently I'll wait for you there, like a stone. I'll wait for you there, alone, alone. Yeah. And he's 12 years old, and 2 more shall be yours. Nobody ever told her it's the wrong way. Don't be afraid with the quickness you get laid, for your family get paid, it's the wrong way. I gave her all that I had to give, I'm gonna make it hard to live. Big salty tears running down her chin, it ruins her makeup, she never won't give. A cigarette rests between her lips, but I'm staring at her tits, it's the wrong way. Strong if I can, but I am only a man, so I take her to the can, it's the wrong way. The only family that she's ever had is the 7 horny brothers and a drunk ass dad. He needed money, so he put her on the street. Everything was going fine until the day she met me. Happy, are you sad? Wanna shoot your dad? I'll do anything I can the wrong way. We talk all night, try to make it right. Believe me, shit was tight, it was the wrong way. Don't run away if you wanna stay, 'cause I ain't here to make ya. Oh no, it's up to you what you really wanna do. Spend some time in America. Dub star. Yeah, 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 yeah. yeah. She'll give you all that she's got to give. I'm gonna make it hard to live. Big salty tears running down her chin, and it mirrors her makeup and never won't give. So we ran away, and I'm sorry when I say that straight to this very day it was the wrong way. She did the hype, don't matter if I like it or not, because she only wants the wrong way. I gave her all that I had to give, she still wouldn't take it. Whoa, no, her two brown eyes are leaking like a seed. It ruins her makeup and never won't give. Hello and welcome everybody to the 6 Pixels Under podcast. I am NS, your Nerd Slayer, your host. Today will be a short podcast, but I wanted to cover some specific things. So less rants. If you want to see rants, watch the last one. The last podcast was like 4 hours of ranting. Nice, I see some Red Hot Chili Pepper fans in the chat. Some wild distaste in the chat as well from Rentastic, fair enough. I wanted to talk about this Wagadu Chronicles thing, because obviously, as people know, I'm in the space of developing my own single-player game, and also with the idea and hope of someday not just consulting on a project, but actually developing my own MMO or online RPG. So I'm very interested in the development of them as well. And recently, there was a pretty big failure that I wanted to cover. So the Wagadu Chronicles was a company by the name of Twin Drums that didn't have any history. Now, what was kind of absurd about this is they had basically no history, but yet got support from Riot, including even marketing support from Riot. They also then succeeded their 163,000, I believe that is pound, right? Or is that euro? I'm blind, but anyway. And yeah, it looks like they actually beat their, they succeeded in their Kickstarter, right? So you might be thinking, okay, what does that actually mean? Well, if you remember in my Kickstarter video, which was like 10 million fucking thousand years ago, I need to make another one, is that Kickstarters and crowdfunding is slightly misleading. And when I say it's misleading insofar as you make it misleading. So that means that it's your job as a developer or a company to do your best to make sure that you can showcase that the game is, you know, what it's supposed to be, even if you haven't, you know, been able to create the game yet, because you're selling people on the idea of it for a Kickstarter. The problem that I have with projects like this is that, and just a lot of how people approach these projects is, when a Kickstarter is complete, they think that the funding is complete. The problem is like out of the Kickstarter projects that I've covered, maybe only a handful of them actually are funding complete. The majority of them actually state that like, this is just like B funding or C funding or like the first round of funding oftentimes, which means that they're basically admitting to you that the Kickstarter amount of money, and thus the Kickstarter, is not to launch the product. Wagadu just got shut down before it ever even launched, as evidence to this, and there's many other examples of this, but again, the reason why this one is such a big deal to me is that it had so much hype, and it was even being backed by like a major company, even if they were just kind of like giving them some funding or giving them some ideas or whatever it was that was going on. Someone in chat can back me up on that. Looks like nobody has the information on that yet, but yeah, that's what I remember. And let me first say, like, the idea of having like an African themed MMO or virtual world actually seems kind of cool. The problem is that since the very beginning, anytime I ever heard them talk about the project, it seemed like they had no idea what they were doing. And this is just a problem that you weirdly enough keep running into, and I don't really know why. Look, this even got a Project We Love badge from Kickstarter. So even Kickstarter was propping it up. And yeah, not only did they never launch the game, they specifically didn't want to actually deliver on the hard copy book that was promised with the early backers. So, because that cost a lot of money. Now, some interesting points that were brought by the community was like, why wouldn't you guys just set this money aside ahead of time whenever you're doing your funding? Because they didn't actually have much of an idea of what they were doing. Sorry. Like, as somebody who, you might be saying, you just make games in your spare time and critique them. Like, where are you speaking from authority? I worked in cost estimation and construction for like 7 or 8 years. Like, the projects that I estimated went from anywhere from, you know, sometimes like a clinic of $10,000, $20,000 to $2 million, or I think 2.5 was like the biggest, or whatever it was. We were a small subcontractor, so our numbers aren't going to be as big as like an MEP. But still, you get the idea. Like, my job was literally to cost estimate. So that means that, like, as a project manager and a cost estimator, you're supposed to come up with whatever your amount of money is you need to do a certain task. Now, what I often run into with these like indie companies, especially ones that are trying to make MMOs, is that they don't have any reference for any of that. Like, they almost seem delusional about it. And I'll bring up another example of that. So Fractured actually has had like some levels of success lately. I'm not going to say it's successful, but they've managed to pull themselves out of a hole that they were in previously before that. That was even worse. Now, what's ironic about this is that as much as people can try to discredit me, I actually spoke to the creator of the game personally, the developer at Dynamite Studios. They're an Italian developer. Back when they were first in talks of working with Gamago, I literally reported on it on this podcast, and I said, hey, like, this seems like a stupid idea, especially with their history, and even my track record with the company is shit. Like, I don't think you guys should do this. See how it says it was published here by Gamago? It's not published anymore because they left the publishing agreement because they realized it was shit. Now, what was funny about this is, and you can look this up on Twitter, I spoke to the CEO directly, and he was accusing me of slight misinformation, saying, oh, well, you don't know to the extent of what the deal would be, and so therefore you don't know the level of control they would have over you. And so whenever I asked him for direct questions, okay, well, are they in charge of monetization, or can they affect monetization? He like would kind of answer the questions and then not really answer the questions. Well, turns out that they would literally exit their relationship with Gamago, end up becoming independent and doing their own thing. Now, this isn't me just saying all of this just so I can like say I told you so. It's more that it's just frustrating when you even have developers that have a significant amount of talent, enough to make a game, right? Still think that they know better than you, like someone like me or Josh Strife Hayes or Lazy Peon, just because we're not in the same predicament or we're not in the same situation. They almost like discard our knowledge because they're just like, oh, they're just YouTubers. And to speak for myself, I just think that's really stupid. And without getting too off topic into my next topic, which is actually on a similar topic of failure, I want to get back to Wagadu Chronicles. So let's look at, oh, there's me listening to Critical Role, ignore that. Let's look at the gameplay.
How about now?
Character creation.
Alright, so we'll choose this. I'm dragging this out. Appearance.
Okay. First thing already. Oh man, I wish you guys could see like my consultant meetings that I have and stuff, like to see how my reactions are to this kind of stuff live as well. Like, oh my god. Sorry, I'm checking to see if I got a message from somebody I'm trying to wait for. But okay. Oh, I hope I can save the day, Nori. I hope I can save the day. All right. Anybody else catch what I'm reacting to? Which, by the way, guys, I'm gonna buy a new monitor because I only have one and it's been fucking painful. Anyway, what am I reacting to?
Yeah.
This is the character creator for a game that's supposed to be based on like an African MMO, one of the most diverse continents. Africa, one of the most diverse continents in the world. You have 2 body appearance options, 2 shapes, 2 chest sizes? What? And this is a modern MMO slash MMORPG, meaning that this is not competitive. This is not an opinion, right? I'm not sitting here being like, well, in my opinion, I just don't like the character creator. No, it's literally not good. This is not good. Compare this to a Korean or Japanese character creator. People wonder why the East is dominating right now. It's because of stuff like this. This is what, you know, a Western company came up with. The best thing that they could come up with was like, oh, we gave you a bunch of skin tone options. Yeah, because it's just color paint over whatever the model is. It takes no effort. Where's all the other customization? This reminds me of the Hero engine. Please don't tell me this thing's built on the Hero engine. I can tell by watching it, so let's see.
I really wish I was more well-versed on this lore. I mean, I kind of feel bad that I'm not, considering how much support I had for this in the beginning. I just haven't had...
Okay, so we're going for some, like, Neverwinter Nights, you know, 3D slash, you know, like top-down aspects. I like that. I actually think that there's a lot of potential for games like this. Sorry, no offense to this content creator, but I'm gonna mute him. And the world looks totally lifeless. This is supposed to be Africa, exciting and all this stuff going on. The only thing they could figure out is just 2 tones of colors, huts with different colors on the insides. Like, this doesn't even look bad. This actually looks good. This is the best thing I've seen in the game so far. This is how I would do it. The presentation system, so there's a WoW mod that literally makes it look like this, and Guild Wars 2 looks similar to this too. So a lot of people in chat are probably like, yeah, this is, I could deal with that. I like this. That's good. Presentation there was nice. The text was easy to read. There's some positives, right? I mean, just look at the color palette here. What is the theme that we're going for? If it's just savanna, desert, Africa, then I mean, you have to make the colors pop in some other kind of way. Through the monsters, through the environment, through something. And you might be saying, yeah, but what if it just looks like drab? And that's just how it's supposed to look. Look, games are not supposed to be completely realistic. So if you don't want to make your game visually appealing, that's certainly an option and just choice you can take. But I think it's a dumb one, personally. Every environment is totally forgettable. There's no points of interest. A constant thing that I have to remind developers of, which is insane to me. That's a thing that needs to be explained when Ragnarok Online is like 20 years old, you know? If you want to read the book on how to make locations memorable, just go play Ragnarok Online. Go play EverQuest 1. Go play RuneScape. All of these have memorable locations that nobody forgets. The crafting doesn't look so bad here. This looks like there's something that's serviceable here, but I saw almost no combat, no conflict in a place that's supposed to be dangerous, let alone a world. Like, if you're just trying to make cooperative worlds, you still have to make them dangerous, right? Like, meaning if you're making a world like, what's that game called? Enshrouded. Or you're making a game like Greedfall. Those kinds of games need some kind of conflict because they're about cooperatively overcoming whatever conflict it is that you encounter. Now, if you're trying to go for like cooperative, like maybe more like social, like Animal Crossing, maybe even Stardew Valley to a lesser extent in games like that, where's all the sim aspects? Not all of that's missing. I mean, there's some harvesting, right? But like, I like the minimalization in the UI and the presentation. I think that's actually very good, and it shows that they did some homework, right? So there was some stuff that was workable here, but I guess one thing I'm just gonna say very bluntly is I don't see a fun game. And in the words of Raf Koster, the pioneer of MMOs and virtual worlds, if you don't have a good game, it doesn't matter if it's a world or virtual or whatever online. Like, nobody's gonna play it. Nobody cares if it's an empty, boring world that it's boring. Looks like Barons. Yeah, I know, and Barons gets made fun of for that reason. It's an alpha game at best. Where are the butt options? I know. And even just like many other kinds of like shapely options. Like the the curvy fan in me is like, come on. Like, yeah, your name's Fluffmaster, so you literally know what I'm talking about. Where's all the fluff, Fluffmaster? Ooh boy, yeah, and that's what I'm saying. This is what your money got you and what their kind of team came up with. And it's like, it's not horrible. It actually looks pretty. Like that's impressive, I think, in an online context to look good. But I don't see the fun game. I don't see the narrative that's drawing you in. There's not enough character customization, which means you don't feel connected to your character. Like, imagine if he could have made his character look just like what he's dressed like right now. Imagine how fucking cool that would have been. And how that would have made him feel. To be like, wow, I can have myself represented in this game that's supposedly supposed to be about, like, the African people or some shit. You know what I'm saying? Like, or black people. I don't know if he's African. He's wearing African clothes, but he could just be black dude from America. But anyway, you get the point that I'm making. Like, but no, it looks... I'm not really even sure what the costume is. It looks like a nurse outfit, but it's like yellow nurse outfit. Kind of like a poncho aspect going on. Which, you know, looks comfortable. But he couldn't do any customization really of that. And I think that people forget how important that is, because the more you can make yourself look like your character, the more you feel like represented. And that's important when you're playing games like this. I just realized I had the big camera on. I think it says something that OSRS has more options for character creation. Yeah, probably does say something, I guess. Huh? But yeah, so it was shut down before launch, and here was their response they gave. They said, as many of you noticed, our updates this year have been less frequent, which means that they kind of already knew that things weren't really going well, but were trying to keep things under wrap, or they were talking about that. I actually think that that's morally wrong, personally, and I'll tell you why. If you're going to be launching an online world that supposedly is, you know, going to take constant development, your base needs to know right away if you're not sustainably able to do it from the jump before the game even launches. So I understand the idea of like, well, no, we're trying to make things work. We're trying to da-da-da-da. Yes, but I'm just going to tell you, if I ever did game development for my own MMO, it would be open development. And if it was a failure, you all would know about it. I would not suddenly hide away for 6, 8, 9, 10 months and then be like, oh shit, yeah, you guys noticed we kind of stopped updating. I feel like that's irresponsible, especially if you want to stay in the industry as a company. My guess is that they probably don't, and they will probably go get hired and for other companies and so on and so forth, and take this as experience for some reason. But anyway, so Twin Drums have been fighting to stay financially afloat. I'm not trying to trivialize the concept of keeping your company alive. I run my own business. I understand what it's like to have to run a business, especially if you have other people that you have to pay for and so on and so forth. So it's not an easy concept, no matter the field. The thing is, though, is that if you're doing Kickstarters and you're promising people what you're supposed to be coming up with, what I actually interpret that as is that you're you're crunching the math and realizing kind of as you're going through the process that you're not going to make enough money and that it's not popular enough. That's not the same as just not like financially being completely irresponsible. Is that possible? Yes, it's possible. Do I think that's what happened? No, I don't. I actually think that they literally figured out as they were doing it. We don't know what we're doing. We don't know how to change our trajectory. So we're just going to bow out here, which is like, I don't know. It feels very amateurish if I'm just going to be very blunt. It says, we don't have the resources to keep going. When we began planning this Kickstarter campaign, the world looked very different. COVID-19 was unheard of. Inflation wasn't making headlines. Inflation doesn't actually affect the development in the same way people argue that it does. And okay, so this is frustrating for me to hear constantly as an excuse. And people will often push back on me and say, oh, how is it an excuse? I never got any care and aid during COVID-19. I have a small business. I never got any loans. I never got PPP loans. I never got a Kickstarter. I never got any of that kind of stuff. I just had to make it work, right? A lot of us had similar aspects, right? Where COVID-19, we either didn't work or we didn't make as much money. It was difficult. It definitely affected all of us in some sort of way. The thing I don't really buy, though, is that the company already was largely remote at that point, as far as I understand it. And if they weren't, let's see if I can get confirmation on where they were located, which will give you a lot of important information. That's why I'm saying that. You can always figure things out when you look up where a company's actually located in. Okay, so all right. I feel like I'm being such an asshole today, but okay. We are a Black-owned firm working on expanding the horizons of what fantasy and sci-fi look like. Cool. Cool. We have 2 little offices in Berlin, Germany, and Accra, Ghana. So in Germany and Ghana, they have 2 little offices. I don't know why they did, but maybe just to house artists or their tech in one place. There's some benefits to doing that, but they admit that they're a mostly remote organization. And I'm just saying, like, you can't really, like, hindsight claim that excuse that COVID-19 affected you so much when you were already a remote company. I'm sorry, it just doesn't make sense to me. And anyway, then it says, and funding for gaming was on the rise. So meaning that they did a Kickstarter and hoped that they were going to get more funding from a bigger publisher, which means their goal was never to actually adhere to whatever the Kickstarters and fans wanted. Wow, that's such a leap. I'll tell you why it's not. Whenever people give you money in business, there's always things that are attached to it. Unless you're an angel investor that's just giving money just to be like, you're my homie, and even then they usually attach their personal feelings to it or personal interest to it, maybe even mentor you. So like it's gonna be more involvement than just like giving you money. Angel investors are pretty heavily involved oftentimes. So that's like one of the few engagements or situations in which someone will just give money for no reason, no strings attached. That's not what happened. When you have a Kickstarter, your customers are actually the ones that are funding you, which means that they are the ones that you're answering to. This is actually a big strength of doing crowdfunded content. A reason I think it's good to do stuff like that, or even do pre-orders with your audience, if you can build a trust with them, because you can build your community that way. You can slowly get the right feedback you need to change your game in the right ways, right? So on and so forth. There's a lot of positives to doing it that way. The problem is that if you're doing Kickstarters, then you're like, okay, but then we're waiting for the big publisher to come in and give us funding. Here's what happens when that happens. Crowdfunding, the player base that's crowdfunding, publisher. How couldn't it be that? Think about that for a second. Why would it ever be the other way around?
Why would the publisher be under the Kickstarters in terms of their attachments, requirements, legalities, desires, so on and so forth? Control. Wow. I worked for a Fortune 500 company. No corporate company is ever going to work with a company if they can't control almost everything, and they can. It's just how corporate works. They want to control almost everything, right? So meaning that like this idea of like suddenly getting funding from some investor company or some fucking, I don't even know what the idea is there, like getting investment funding somehow would have meant that basically all the goodwill that was, you know, created supposedly during the Kickstarter and the community generation from that was kind of misleading if you think about it. It makes you as a Kickstarter fan feel like maybe your voice is heard in the same way, but as soon as they end up getting a publisher, your voice isn't going to be heard in the same way. And I bet you they would have lied to you that it was. Seeing how this company operates, I'm sorry. They would have been like, no, yeah, for sure. Like, you guys, you're still important to us. We just have a publisher now, which means that we can do more things. They would have said something flowery like that instead of just telling the truth, right? Like that guy that was talking to me personally, who runs Fractured Online, who I literally told, like, bro, I'm just telling you, like, if you get burned by Gamago, don't like say I told you so kind of thing. It's like I never got any emails from him back or any messages back because nobody likes to deal with egg on their face. But my thing is just deal with it. You can figure out why you have egg on your face, what the reasons are, and just, you know, analyze it in the situation while it's happening. It's not easy, but I think it's better to just take it more soberly than try to kind of like hide in the delusion of like, no, it's because we never got the magical funding that was supposed to come in. And it's like, but that's not how you guys were really selling the project in the first place. And if you were selling it that way, then you were kind of selling it in a misleading way. And then third off, you could have pivoted off of that idea and made something a lot more humble. But my idea and thought is you probably didn't want to, huh? Like, it's not as exciting, doesn't make as much money, probably can't pay back as much as you guys were spending, money as you were spending. But yeah, this is a company in a game that was supposed to produce a massive TTRPG to go alongside the game, was supposed to have an early access launch this month in 10 days, was supposed to release 3 different books that would provide different lore and backgrounds and stuff like that. It's just, it's okay to be mad or angry or annoyed at stuff like this. It's also okay to be like, how do we prevent stuff like this from happening in the future? And the truth of the matter is I said this when the Kickstarter project first came onto the scene. How the fuck did this get funded? I literally said that on stream. I was like, how did this get funded? And people were like, oh, well, you're kind of hating, and maybe because Riot or whatever. Like, people were giving me some reasons, and it's like, maybe I'm hating a little bit, but like, the reason why I was curious why I got funding is they didn't actually even give you an idea of what the world was supposed to be. And they never showed you what that concept is supposed to look like. And I'm sorry, but I've been telling fans now for 5-6 years that I've been around that like these online virtual worlds and online games, the reason why they don't try to bullshit you that much anymore in the same ways is because they know most players and player bases have gotten smarter. But at the same time, they know that like as soon as the main player base would have gotten their hands on this game, they would have shit all over it. Like, because they know that the main player base right now is interested in games that have strong combat. That's just true. It doesn't mean you have to follow that formula, but if you don't, you have to do it well, right? On top of that, and I'm just gonna fucking acknowledge this because people want to be pussy and not talk about shit like this, but the other thing is that you made it very specific to a particular region and thus group of people. I think that that's great, and there's a lot of strengths to that. There's also weaknesses to that. You can alienate fan bases. You can create some other weird racial scenarios. You can make it hard for the majority of the fan base that's playing the game to relate. I mean, look, if I'm going to be honest here, I'm just going to say this. I don't think that if you're making a game about Africa, everyone on the fucking team has to be African. But I'm just saying, like, the way the company sells itself on the website says, like, we're African, like, you know, black owned, but then only has 3 or 4 like employees that are black as far as we can see or understand. Sure, one of them's the CEO and one of them's the lead game designer, but with all, you know, intents and purposes, Where is the actual identity in the game that's coming through of Black culture and African culture? If it's just because of how the art looks, which looks impressive, I don't actually think that that's what it means. I don't think culture is just the way things look, right? Like, it seems like a very reductionist way to think about culture. So I guess what I'm trying to say is like, not that they needed more Black people on the team, but I'm just saying, like, I expected to see and feel more of the fun parts of culture and fun parts of that world. Instead, you have basically a kind of barren world that people kind of already expect and kind of are bored of at this point with how long survival games have been around. And then on top of that, like, you have some narrative aspects, but there's no narrative aspects that actually draw you in as a player or the character. So I'm just saying, like, there's so many things that you could have looked at before the Kickstarter even like succeeded that would have been like dicey about this. But it's just surprising to me that they never seem to come up with any other pivots or different ideas. It really seems like they just tried to hit the first idea they had out of the park. When it didn't work, just kind of gave up. It's just like, all right, I mean, fair enough, you know? What game are you talking about? Wagadoo Chronicles. Yeah, oh, thanks, Mirsa Zero Sins. Game industry died years ago, more priority into everything but the heart and soul the game is worked on. I mean, I don't agree with that. It's like a point that people push a lot, like, with all due respect, but it's oftentimes pushed by people who just either don't play enough games, or they are in a particular genre where they feel like maybe they're getting the brunt of the negativity of what's going on. So they feel almost like singled out. So, like, you know, for example, I'm an RTS fan. Right now I'm playing Stormgate. RTS fans, we've kind of been fucked, like, for a while. We haven't really had the best RTSs, and if you're not an Age of Empires 4 fan, kind of don't have anything. So I could kind of make that same kind of argument and feel persecuted and say, well, I feel like it's because the industry, da-da-da-da. But, I mean, to be honest, like, many of the RTSs that did come out later on made mistakes, and then further ones didn't come out in ways that changed up things and made things exciting. I mean, Warcraft and StarCraft failed epically, and they weren't like failures immediately, but they failed in the long term, like, actively. So things like that I think could have been fixed, but yeah, maybe 15 years ago, who knows. Game designers are far removed from what we desire. It's sad. I mean, I don't even think necessarily that's true. I think, again, it's though you're making very broad statements, which are just hard to argue because there's so many genres and games that they're doing just fine. Like, for example, RPGs have not been struggling. RPGs haven't been. I don't think they've ever struggled. Like, as an RPG player, I don't think I've ever felt like, man, no good RPGs exist. I've just never felt that way. There is so many RPGs to play out there, especially these days. It's almost overwhelming, especially when you think about, like, games on itch.io or games on what's that other place? I forgot that other marketplace. Yeah, exactly. So RTS is like, but turn-based is like, phew, which as a kid I would have hated. I played both of them, but as a kid I would have fucking hated that. I would have been like, man, screw turn-based games. I actually think maybe this is not what you're talking about, but I'll bite onto that, Araz. Which is one of the fair criticisms that I've never heard anyone make is that Divinity 2 does play awfully similar to Baldur's Gate. Even the cover art in the very beginning scenes with the whole ships and the coast is like the same. It looks the same, kind of. Surprised no one really like noticed or mentioned that. Like, sure, it's not mind flayers or some shit, but it's like the scenes are pretty similar. Even the intro scene is similar. So, man, Larian must be G's if they got basically no criticism for that. People like to be other people. I think so too. I'm probably more that way myself. I don't make my characters to look like myself. Well, that would make sense, fantastic. Yeah, I was surprised how much the early. Yeah, definitely felt like Dragon Age 2. That's the example my friend used with the whole Origins. I will say though that like Dragon Age Origins will always have infinitely more replayability than a game like Baldur's Gate, because you can actually replay different Origins. The thing about Baldur's Gate, I'm replaying it right now with my cousin. I think I mentioned this to everyone. I beat it on Tactician, so I'm like one of the 3% best players in the world, you know. But anyway, it took me like literally like 200 hours to do that. So if you want to try, it will be difficult. And if people were wondering why not just do honor mode incentivizes you to kind of cheese, and I just don't think that adds to the gameplay in any significant way. It's just gonna make you want to be more of a cheese ball, and that's cool and all, but that doesn't make the game better or more fun. But yeah, when I went back and I've been playing with my cousin, I let him basically take all the decisions. And the beginning parts don't really feel that different, you know? Like, feels kind of like the same. So it's, I guess, one of my biggest problems with Divinity, and I mean, it seems like most Larian games in general, is that most of their early games are pretty copy-paste. Like, you have to keep doing the same thing over and over again. It means you have one life, and I think you can only hard save or auto save or some shit like that. Yeah, something like that. And, you know, before people think I'm bullshitting, the difficulty is the same in both modes. It's just that one has permadeath, which means that if you think about it logically, the only thing you have to solve for is making sure you don't die. And the best way to make sure you don't die, pre-chant, set up the battlefields, pre-buff, and so on and so forth. So it's like, you basically just end up power gaming the whole way through. So if you like that and you want that challenge, then by all means, honor mode's fun. But I honestly think Tactician's just probably good enough for, like, well, apparently like 97-95% of players, but I think it's a lot more fun. I found it to be fun, but I will fully admit that if you don't actually come up with like proper strats and play your party like coordinatedly, you gonna die. A lot. That's the thing, Fluffmaster, is like, for any of my friends who've beaten honor mode, or any of the people I've read about online rather, that also beat Tactician, they all said the same thing. They say it's just D&D, bro, pre-buff. And they're right. Like, I did it a few times in my save, but meaning like a few times I was just like, fuck it, I'll just pre-buff this, I'll just take this potion, I'll just, you know, resistance shit, like, and you know, it was like every now and then I did it. Like, in honor mode, I would have to do it every fucking fight, and I would have to constantly fucking thaumaturgy, and then fucking do my checks, and make sure if I'm gonna roll an intimidation before, then I'm gonna intimidation bonus check, like myself, like all that kind of stuff, you know. It's just like, ugh. I love D&D for the story, guys. I'm not a, like, it's weird, in MMOs and PvP games, I can be a very big power gamer, but when it comes to D&D and like roleplay, I don't want a power game. Like, so yeah, the buffing stuff, it just gets, it's too crazy to me, and especially because you can, in real D&D, you can go even crazier, and Fluff probably knows this too, because you can do shit like you can do in Neverwinter Nights, program your character and be like, well, when so-and-so casts this, you cast this, and on reaction, I'm gonna spell cast this, and it like becomes fucking super absurd. You can make your character just like have like 20 abilities queued while you're playing regular D&D. Yeah. That's fair, Harass. I grew up playing Neverwinter Nights and yeah, needless to say, these games are very natural games to me. Even when I'm playing now, like with my cousin, I'm playing the complete opposite character that I was playing before. I'm playing a barbarian who throws weapons and also just frenzies berserker style. So I just constantly keep my health low, run into battles and throw people off of things and push people off of stuff, and it's awesome, and it's a total different playstyle, and it's fun. But I like it because of the identity that goes with it, meaning that the gameplay isn't fun for the sake of it for me. So I can understand if people don't like the combat that much, because for me it's like the whole picture with these kinds of games. It's like it's the character identity, it's the customization, and the role-playing parts. Yeah, exactly, Araz, actually. That's actually a pretty nice read, because as a kid, I was playing StarCraft religiously, and then I found Neverwinter Nights 1 in a bin, and at the time I didn't have a desk. Long story short, I was poor, blah, blah, blah. I didn't have a desk, so I just had my computer on the ground, and I found that disc, and I put it in, and I was blown away by Neverwinter Nights. The fact that you could mod your own servers, the fact that you could like create your own stories and modules, and that the game itself was also so varied, and there was like a lot of like variety throughout it. So yeah, like whenever I found Neverwinter, it actually was pretty natural for me, because I was used to like playing real-time strategy, which is, it's funny because back then, and you probably know this, and as do most people in chat, people didn't like it. People did not like real-time action, or real-time battling system, whatever you guys want to call it. They didn't like it back then. Most people that I knew would pause constantly. Like that was more how people played those games back then. Because I didn't grow up playing CRPGs, I didn't play that way. So I would always play Neverwinter Nights on continuous. And mind you, I played Final Fantasy turn-based, but like, you get what I'm saying. Like, so whenever I started playing more turn-based D&D games, I started like being like, oh, this is actually D&D, you know, because you can actually see it more. In Neverwinter Nights 1, all the actions are they're happening like behind the scenes, like all the rolls and stuff. Okay, so recent news, I want to talk about it just because I have two things I want to get to. We got through Wagadu, which is a combination of this sucks, but it's also just one of those things where it just seems like, look, man, like if people are gonna want to create online virtual worlds, maybe go play some. Maybe just go play some. Not just WoW, okay? Like, just go play some of them. Do some notes. Why don't you do study sessions like they do in Japan? Pick a game, play it as a team, study it, figure out why it worked, and then come up with some designs yourself. I'm just saying, like, I don't know where the clever systems are in a game like Wagadu. And if you don't have clever systems before the game even comes out, it just means like, I just don't know what they were doing, is all I'm saying. So, Redfall and developer Arcane Austin specifically has been shut down. Reactions. I play a monk that's a mix of Big Lebowski with Popeye when I'm a goofball smokes up before Intercomic gets buffed. But I like that corn dog. Yeah, me, I'm playing what's her name? God, I'm blanking out. The big barbarian girl with horns. I'm not the main character, so I guess I forget my name a lot, but what the hell is my name? I forgot myself. I literally forgot who I am. But anyway, my character is that character. Is she like my favorite character so far? No. But the way I'm playing her is more like I'm just so my cousin is Gale, and the joke that I make is like, because I was trapped in a puzzle, in some kind of trap, like trap puzzle, Gale happens upon me, and I basically make a deal with him, or he makes a deal with me. If you follow me around and keep me safe, because you look strong, you know, because I'm all like jacked and shit. He sees me and he's like, you look strong, like if you follow me around, like for life, like I'll save you. Like he's kind of just making a joke. And so my character goes, okay, yeah, like save me. And he ends up saving me using his magic and shit. And so that's my RP backstory, is my character got out and Wookiee style did like a life bond with Gale. So it literally, I tell my cousin all the time, and I'm not even just like being facetious or like not caring, but I tell him, I'm like, hey, do whatever you want, man. I'm here to bang. Like whenever we walk into a room, he's like, hey, should we fight these guys? Should we kill these guys? I said, I'm like, hey man, you're asking a hammer if he should hammer. Like, like, so that literally is my characters. They love to fight. They love the thrill of fighting. And then they want to protect the guy that saved their life. So yeah, it's a simple character, but it works for me. I like the Big Lebowski Popeye thing. That's pretty fun. Mine's always getting pissed off at, like, I pretend like my frenzies are less like like deep anger, like crazy anger, and more of like Super Saiyan, like Yeah, so anyway, let me finish my point about Redfall. So I did a video on Redfall 6 months ago, and already the company has been shuttered, and this fucking sucks, man. But I wanted to highlight some important parts of the video that people could have potentially saw this coming. With the music playing in the background, this mystery has come to an end. The last reason is a real killer. While it's totally awesome being a well-known developer, it also puts a super high standard on you and your games. Think about BioWare and their fall from grace, for example. But if you lose sight of what your core audience wants, you might lose your core audience altogether. And while Arcane has plenty of fans still wanting to give them another shot, as they don't have a large record of failing, making this feel more like a one-off, if they aren't careful with their next titles, they could very well compromise their amazing reputation and thus their audience, and follow in the footsteps of BioWare. Coming off the success previously of Deathloop, however, and a litany of other successful ARPG immersive sims, all signs point to being able to make another successful one. But Arcane would be lacking many of the key talent that made that happen previously, a major issue that all game development companies suffer after being acquired by a major corporation, making such a harder endeavor. Although the Arcane team felt being acquired by Bethesda was originally the right fit, they had little choice in being acquired by Microsoft, further complicating things, I'm sure. In the end, the lesson that we learn, and likely will continue to learn on this series, is that no matter how much you try to make money in art and video games, if you task your development team with something that doesn't invoke their excitement or inspirations, or even utilize their best talents, well, the final product is rarely one that's going to be remembered past the point of their failures. And another note, a side note, and probably a very personal note for myself too, is that no matter what you do, after you sell to a corporation, the outcome, historically, has basically only been one direction. Thanks for watching. I basically am Grog, if you think about it, corn dog. But yeah, like, so, to spark note for people if you missed it. Actually, let me go to the restroom really quickly. The best. I came back right when I read that. The best YouTubers don't have Windows XP. I mean, honestly, real talk. Like the last time, I'm not even kidding. Like you guys are gonna think I'm fucking like making this shit up. Like, you want to know the true story? The last time I activated Windows, I got hacked. I'm not even kidding. Like, I'm literally not kidding. So, needless to say, you know what? I don't know if we're gonna activate one. And the funny thing is my copy is actually literally legit. I mentioned this before. It's just that whenever you buy keys these days, they don't come in a CD. They come in a fucking piece of paper, dude. And I lost the fucking piece of paper. Like, obviously, I lose everything. So, I lost that damn piece of paper. So, I have a legit copy, and I can't even activate my shit, which is pretty fucking annoying. But what the? Alright, sorry, I forgot something. I find out that all these companies sell out to large corps only to leave. New company will say we will do it. So, corn dog, I love that question, buddy. Because this is something that I used to obsess about. I've always wanted to have my own business since I was a kid, and always wanted to be in game development. I was a kid, so I have a lot of I guess time thinking about this shit, and it comes down to this: if you want to, so if you lose your, if your company is a private company, you're not forced to sell your company. If your a company is a company that is private but has like percentages of control, theoretically, you could sell that company or have to sell that company. Now, if you're a company that has investors and is public and so on and so forth, well, suddenly now you're at another level where you can't just disconnect easily. So what I'm trying to say is this. When you're making a game and you're an artist, people approach you, and this has happened to me too. Like, people have never really asked me what's the craziest shit that's happened to me, but I've had some crazy shit happen. But like, it's even happened to me where people approach you with like a crazy deal that sounds like amazing, but there's always like something that kind of goes with it. And sometimes it's like, well, you don't have creative control, or sometimes it's, well, you have to teach me like how to do something and be my, like, you know, tutor basically. Or it's like, well, it's this, but then it's like what I'm trying to say is that, does this mean that it always works that way? No, but very oftentimes when you're an artist, you'll get the promise of the money that you need, but sometimes you have to kind of like do something you don't want to do for it. And that doesn't mean like immoral or blah, 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 but it just means like maybe like you have to make like, let's say, a game that you don't want to make, like Redfall, right? Or something like that. The problem is that like failures in video game companies, especially for multiplayer games, they don't work the same way like other failures do. What I'm saying is that if you spend hundreds of millions of dollars but tank your reputation, it's not the same as Ford making a bad product. Ford has 10 other good products. If you make a bad game, you can be expendable. Even just one bad game. Because your other games aren't making you money anymore. Not in the same way. So suddenly it just seems like corporations will do this whole like throw you out with the bathwater kind of thing. Now, you're more asking, Corn Dog, and I think most people often wonder about, well, why do people take this deal? Well, it's culture. A large part of it is culture. When I was in business spaces, again, I went to a business school. I've been to business seminars, including at my old university. I've been to workshops where you literally come up with products and ideas and so on and so forth. And I've done a lot of stuff like that, and I like stuff like that a lot. However, what I notice whenever I do stuff like that is that how I approach that stuff is very different than I feel like other people. And I'll just be honest about that. When I encounter other people in their projects, they're like, all right, yeah, as soon as I get a publisher or somebody who's ready to put the money down, boom, I sell the product, I move into this, and that's how they look at it. They call this startups in Silicon Valley and most of the world now, but mostly California. These startups are basically companies that are pitched on ideas. They don't even make money. They're pitched on ideas that might make money and could make money. And many of them don't. And many of them will promise you percentages and all this other kind of cool stuff that's like sounds awesome and everything, and then ends up kind of going nowhere. So like startups is like another aspect of like, well, people want to kind of like create their own company, but then it ends up just feeding the same corporations because they just want to get acquired. And you might be saying, well, why do they want to get acquired? Large payout oftentimes pays in dividends, meaning it keeps paying you. And third, now if you get hired at an executive level at a big company, the chances of you getting fired are very, very low. So I think that for creators, it starts innocently. I'll just pretend this is a person that's not like totally capitalist pilled, and I'll explain what I mean in a second. They might just think, you know what, I just want my game to be able to launch, bro. So Cliffy B makes a deal with Nexon. Everybody knows what happens next. It doesn't go well because they have issues amongst each other. And it's never really explained if Cliffy B's resistant to free-to-play is why the game more so fails, or Nexon wanting more of like a free-to-play kind of game or whatever else. But the point that I'm making is that's why, if you wonder why Nexon and Cliffy B never seemed like a good fit, they probably weren't, but Cliffy was no longer with Epic and didn't want to get another type of investor, so he got Nexon. And Nexon now owns Lawbreakers. So if you want to play Lawbreakers, it doesn't matter if Cliffy B designed, developed, or whatever the game. It's not his game anymore. So you give up that ownership oftentimes and the rights for things when you enter into relationships like that. But people do it because they, A, feel like it's necessary. They don't have a choice. They need funding and support. B, it's a natural course of action, right? Culturally accepted. C, they want to see their art get created, sometimes at all costs. So they'll make a deal with the devil just to make sure that they can get their product out, period. And the problem is sometimes that will lead to a success on one game and then end up leading to a bunch of significant failures after. And that's because the way corporations do things eventually, in my experience, end up kind of pushing the creatives out. Like the corporations that aren't very good, I should say, I guess, at keeping their creatives. Because clearly corporations exist like that, like Nintendo, or even Google. Like some of these companies exist, right? But another thing too is that naivety exists. Sometimes these guys are artists and not businessmen. So they sign deals and they think that, this will be good for us, and then they realize, oh wait, we can't actually do anything. Right? Sometimes that happens. Now, I want to talk about like the crazed capitalist approach, and that goes back to like those workshops I've been to, the university I went to, so on and so forth. I've been around people, you see it online posted all the time. They say the number one thing you do in business is you make a company and you sell it. And it's like, who wrote that into the, like, if you're American, like the American like dream? I never grew up with that. I never thought for a second I was supposed to just sell my company for money. But something happened when I was in my teenage years. I started hearing people say this as like a victory chant. Yeah, and then I would sell my company, and it's like, but if it's my company, and I love it and I'm passionate for it and I want to keep creating art, why the fuck would I sell it? I wouldn't. And now I'll go big picture because a lot of people don't know this, but that's why I've turned down deals before, guys. Because I don't want to work for somebody else and have to do it their way. I want to do it my way and do things my way. So if it takes me 10 or 20 more years to come out with an MMO that's done my way, it'll be well worth the wait, first off. And second off, I don't give a fuck how long it's going to take, because the artistic parts of it and the message behind what I believe I could create means more to me than somebody taking credit for everything I did, giving me some shitty deal, and then having to leave the company after that, or not being able to fulfill the vision I actually want. So it's weird, like this. I don't know, again, for people wondering why I seem like so disillusioned sometimes about things that seem very obvious, it's because, like, growing up, I spent a lot of time around my grandparents and my great-grandparents. I lived with my grandparents longer than I lived with my parents. Like, it's just a true fact. And I spent a lot of time around my great-grandparents as well, and they were amazing. My great-grandparents were very loving, very caring, very smart, very intelligent, super plugged into the world. Like, I was very, very fortunate. I didn't know that at the time, but I was very fortunate to have met them. The greatest generation, people call them. But anyway, so I grew up with, like, that as, like, the, you know, background of my American dream story. My dad's family were immigrants, literally from Mexico, first generation, so we got the American dream that way. My mom's side was, they were farmers. Then my great-grandpa joined the military, aka World War II, and ended up becoming very successful, blah, 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 blah. So, like, these are very classic American stories, right? Like, immigrant story, the war hero story, blah, blah, blah. But I guess growing up with these, like, stories, I never felt like I was ever gonna give my company away. I don't know. It's something I can't even think about. Like, you know how many times guys like me get offers for, like, give me your revenue and then we'll give you X amount of money for X amount of time. Like, some, like, deal like that all the time. But those deals to me are fucking useless when it's like, I'm not doing this just for the money. First off, it'd be a shitty thing to do just for the money. And second off, I'm doing it because I love it and I believe in doing whatever it is that I believe in. Which means I don't care how much money someone's gonna give me. I've had literal, like, millionaires that I've been working with tell me, like, wait, you don't want all this money to do it my way? And it's like, no, I don't. I don't. I think your way is not good, and I don't want that money. Like, that's just how I am. And, you know, I prefer to do things my way. I will always be that way. And obviously that comes with lots of mistakes and having to learn things the hard way. But for me, like, what you own, it's a representation of yourself. It's like, I couldn't imagine giving away my reputation or myself, a part of myself, you know? Like, it's why I'm so, like, in some ways, as many people in chat here know about me, I'm so, like, confrontational about my content, is because I do care about it so much and I love it so much. So when I encounter idiots or people who won't learn actively, it's kind of like, well, fuck off and stop wasting my time. That's just how I feel. It just feels like the devs get hurt and the leads make bank. Yeah, I mean, unfortunately. Yeah, that is kind of what happens. And then IPs end up getting stagnated. That's the part that I hate the most, is like when IPs end up getting killed and murked and just shelved and, like, nothing happens. And it's just like, damn, that fucking sucks. Because you have so many IPs that are just sitting around doing nothing right now. You can start small and work your way up like most indie devs do. Yeah, of course, like, that's the idea. I guess, like, for these companies that fail before they've even made anything, they're often failing because they scaled up too fast, didn't understand what they were doing, and then realized it's not really gonna work, like that kind of stuff. Like, or pull a Star Citizen. Forgotten Where. Facts. The American Dream died in the 60s. My Way or the Highway, Fred Durst. What's that, Fairway Rose? I think I read one of your comments before because you seem familiar, but Fame and Fortune are forever in the history books. Yeah, for me, it's probably more the history books. Nobody's gonna play it. What, Star Citizen? I think people are full of shit. They're gonna say they're not gonna play Star Citizen. Sorry. If it actually does well and ends up being good and shit, like, I don't know. I don't believe you. I don't believe you, Finn. I'm still waiting for a Golden Sun sequel. And when they bring it back, yeah, I know, Fluffmaster, fucking Fire Emblem, for example. Fire Emblem has like 700 mobile games. It's like, why? Just make more Fire Emblems. But or no, RO. You probably know that better than me. RO has like what, 4 mobile games since the second game? Like, oof, it's painful. Oof. Dark Eden has like 3. You guys know that that's my childhood, you know, Japanese game. Like, I don't even understand it. Well, Japanese Korean. I always say that. I always say Japanese because, as I tell people, the server that I played on was the Japanese server. It was called International. International was the Japanese server. But the game Softonic was made in Korea, and it's a Korean company. But kind of like how RO was like successful in other regions too, despite being Korean. Yeah, kind of like that. Metal Gear Pachinko. But yeah, I think it's more important for you to like want to create something that is gonna matter to you in the long haul. Like if you want to just make money or make something with more money, then selling something for money, it makes sense, right? But I've never understood that because again, to me, it literally goes against the dream, the American dream. It's like people always talk about the American dream. It's like, but none of you guys own anything. Like everyone's a renter now. Nobody owns their own business. Like, I'm not saying all of you have to be owners and bosses and so on and so forth. I'm just saying, like, just think about like what kind of government and society would prefer you to not have those things. Probably somebody that's making money off of you, because I want you guys to have those things. I want you to have your own house, car, you know what I'm saying, land, businesses, because I want you guys to have ownership. I believe in ownership, especially you know, as a core concept, core belief. But yeah, like, dude, the amount of time I've talked with bigwigs and they're just like, yeah, like, come work for my company, and it's just like, I mean, to be clear, like, the only way I would ever work for your company is if like you signed my contract. That would state that like you would never like suddenly pretend you knew what you were talking about and affect the game design. Anyway, that's another topic. Are you listing audiobooks? Like, which audiobook RPGs are your favorite? I mean, to be honest, if you have recommendations, Saeed, I'll take them. Actually, you know, weird, I still read, and I like audiobooks. I've been telling people this for a long time. My grandma, which is so fucking funny to say, my grandma red pilled me on audiobooks when I was like fucking single digits. And it's because, for all the old timers in chat, you're gonna laugh, but my grandma was huge into books on tape. Books on tape were huge. People don't know about books on tape because they were an era. And if you weren't into tapes and cassette tapes and so on and so forth and your radio, you would have never learned that era, but my grandma was. And so we would listen to constant books on tape. And I used to think it kind of was stupid and I didn't like it that much. You know, we just wanted to listen to music. We're kids. But here's the weird thing. My grandma literally red pilled me because she would just play the books constantly when we would drive to Galveston for like a few hours to the coast. And so, oh, next thing you know, I've read like 30 books by age 9, and they're all mystery books. That's the other thing that is, many people don't know this, but which is crazy. I know, like, people are used to sometimes channels and creators having certain identities that don't necessarily match who they are. But the detective parts of my character, NS, and the channel in Death of a Game series, that's all me. Like, it's not the only part of me, but it's a part of me. And it comes from my grandma. Like, when I was a kid, my grandma was always, you know, listening to books on tape, but they were mystery books. So I had no idea what mystery was and really what any of that stuff was. And once I started getting interested in it when I was like, probably like 10 years old, that's when my grandma and grandpa started getting me Black and White, Sherlock, and showing me Murder, She Wrote, and of course all the mystery classics. And then it became more of like, ooh, I love mystery. So yeah, I was like very fortunate to have a lot of time spent with my grandparents because they got me interested in like things from other generations. And I think those things not only helped me in life, but they're parts of my identity still, like which is cool. Dungeon Crawler Carl is pretty good. I'll send you it. Oh yeah, send it to me on Insta. My daycare had book tapes. Let's go. Yeah, there you go. See, and to me, like, audiobooks are just an extension of that. Like, book tapes back then were kind of like one dude doing 17 voices, and they weren't very good, dude. Oh man, like, you guys have it spoiled nowadays. You listen to fucking like Wheel of Time, and they have like 3 voice actors or some shit, like a full cast of voice actors. On Game of Thrones is like audiobooks. Like, everyone is so spoiled these days with audiobooks. You know what we got back then? We got some dude named fucking, you know, John Smith. He was like some 50-year-old dude named John Smith, and this is his voices. He had 3 voices. It'd be the main character's voice, and then it would be like a slightly older fella doing the like an older guy, and then this was the girl's voice. Hi, I'm a girl, and yeah, and I don't know, I just really... I'm not even kidding, it wouldn't be a good girl voice or like a low girl voice. A lot of the time it'd be like, I'm still the... And I'd be like... Because it's all the same guy. So even my grandma would talk shit. She's like, oh, I hate when he does the girl voice. And I was like, you know, just like laughing at that. But nowadays... you have full cast voice actors, female, male, sound effects. I watched a fucking Mistborn. It had sound effects and a soundtrack, an orchestrated soundtrack to it. Like, it was like I was watching a movie but in my ears. Like, you know, like, it was so high production value. I was like, what the fuck? Like, compared to, I know I did just back in my day, you guys. But then, like, yeah, it just is funny to think about the difference, man. Nowadays audiobooks are fucking amazing, and like, you can listen to everything on you can listen to Andy Serkis giving you the rendition of Lord of the Rings. You know what I'm saying? It's like, what the fuck? Like, back in my day, it was just like some like low budget dude on a cassette tape pretending it. And then, you guys don't know this, but there was always sex scenes, dude. So the sex scenes would be like this. It'd be like, and then he unbuckles her pants and starts to undress, and then the girl will be like, and then she feels like her heartbeat. Like, they would like describe it, and I'm sitting there, I'm like, the fuck, this shit ain't romantic, this shit's horrible. The romance was almost always horrible in those books, dude, and the sex scenes were the worst. It was just like, you could tell like the guy that wrote it never has. Oh yeah, Fluff Master. I asked my grandma to fast forward a few times. I'm not gonna lie, because we're sitting there listening to some, you know, super old dude in the 50s giving a sex scene. It'd be like, then he unbuckled. Like, I'm not even kidding. It would be like super like that, and it would be like, and they'd be like, oh, like every now and then make some noise. I'm like, what the fuck? Like, are they miming this shit? Even Wolverine has an audiobook? Interesting. Into web novels and comics with BGM. I don't think I've actually ever got into that. I've mentioned this before. I grew up most of my life around copious amounts of Koreans. And yes, Koreans read manhwa or manga too, but one of my friends growing up too was Vietnamese. Well, 2 of my friends actually, and both were obsessed with manga. One of them, he's still my friend and still around, still reads manga, but like when they were young, were like always reading manga. So I got exposed to that a lot, and I actually used to read more manga initially when I was like a kid than I would read other series. Like, meaning, besides Toonami, the only time I found out about other animes was by reading about them. And then probably when I was like 15, 16, I went on like a deep anime excursion because I kind of realized like I didn't watch a lot of anime, and so I was like, huh. I discovered Brotherhood, FMA, the original, a couple of the other Gundam series, Trigun again, Gurren Lagann, a bunch that I read during that time, or saw during that time rather. It's like they copied a visual novel. Yeah, I'm into visual novels too. I don't know of any good ones though. Maybe someone should recommend some to me. Because I grew up playing all the fucking hot anime girl visual novels as a kid as well. Wait, I have fucking something in my nose. I'm like using the camera. Guess not. It's just big. Just a big ugly nose. I actually don't understand how people find noses attractive, like specifically. I guess like meaning like not liking them. I like all noses, big or small. Is that weird? Yeah, like somebody's nose size like doesn't, I guess it doesn't like factor into anything for me. Is a visual novel similar to like Wolf Among Us? I mean, basically. Those are more like considered action adventure games. But like they could be a mixture. I actually think it's fair to call them a hybrid. And the reason being is, to me, an action adventure game is something more like Dreamfall. Which, if you guys haven't played Dreamfall, including the originals, dude, Dreamfall's fucking kick-ass. Written by an amazing author. Produced by Funcom, so it's like a half decent game. And it basically is played like a visual novel. There's not that much action. Well, the second game has action, but the first and the third don't. I think Dreamfall is one of the best action adventure games there is, and one of the best like narrative, like visual novel style games. So that's the kind of stuff that I like. If you guys are wondering, you play as a female character. She's angsty female character, and I like stuff like that. I don't want to play as a dude most of the time, to be honest. And when I do play as a dude, they better be interesting, because most of the time, and most people here can back me up, if it's a male character who's the main character, there's something super vanilla about him that's like forgettable, sadly. And that's because that's how games get sold. There's tons of memes about that, so I don't have to go into it, but dudes are gay, honestly. And it's also like, whenever you're like me, like you're an MB, you don't actually think about gender much. I'm gonna let you guys in on a fucking funny ass thing. When you speak gendered languages and you don't appeal or feel relation to the genders, it's pretty fucking difficult. And what I mean is like, you know how many times I sit there and think, what's the gender of this when I'm speaking Spanish or Korean? Well, Spanish, I should say. But sometimes Koreans will have different ways to say something that's female and male. But when I'm speaking Spanish, I'm like, how is this considered a male? And then my brain starts getting deep into it, and it's like, how is a spoon female? But a knife is male. So I don't spend much time thinking about that stuff, as you can imagine, because that's what my brain ends up doing. It's just like, how are things gendered? No, but Korean has words that apply to certain. So actually, as far as I understand, the only non-gendered Asian language, or rather, the only fully gendered Asian language, and you'll see what I mean in a second, is Chinese. Doesn't Chinese actually refer to third genders? I was told this by somebody who I trust, so. I think Chinese is, yeah, the only Asian language that actually refers to third genders. Period. So maybe that would make Chinese the only slightly gendered language? Maybe if it's a female. Maybe it's a female if a guy has tried to do something funny with it. I like that, Fluffmaster. Supermassive titles are like interactive visual novels, but it's probably more of an extension of the point-and-click genre. We're talking about Hades, right? And Hades 2. I think those are fair. I think those are like action-adventure games to me. Classic action-adventure games, they look different. But I'm also not a stickler on games like that in terms of how to categorize them. I'm only a stickler for categorization when I feel like it takes away from the genre, the game, or makes it worse in some kind of way, right? Yeah, let me actually look that up. Is Chinese the only gendered Asian language? Yeah, okay. Okay. So here it is. I found the correction to what I'm saying. So Des, here we go. Many Asian languages are considered to be genderless. Chinese, Korean, and Japanese, as well as Polynesian, have genderless pronouns, but here's the catch. This doesn't mean that these languages are actually gender neutral. Many Asian languages just imply gender in the words and the structure. So yeah, it does say that like Sinitic languages, aka Chinese, has nearly no inflections for gender, tense, or case. So, and there's only a few exceptions, like I mentioned with Korean. Korean's exceptions are gyu and yunra, or yinya, nye, nyo. I think that's nyo, yenyo, yenyo. So before that was invented, you had to use a third person singular pronoun to describe a woman. So, interesting. You learned something. Turkish is gender neutral too? Really? Interesting. We have O for it, him, her, they. Ah, interesting. The upcoming Black Panther Captain American game looks to be a supermassive interactive game. I'm curious about the gameplay. I'm glad that they're attempting something else. Interesting, fantastic. And it's crazy how different the languages come across that way. For people that haven't heard Turkish, by the way, you should go listen to it. It's a super interesting language. Like, obviously, I have a lot of love for anything Mediterranean, pretty much. They're all really cool cultures and super interesting. But yeah, Turkish is a really cool language to sing. I feel the same way about Hebrew, Spanish, Greek. Yeah, pretty much all the Mediterranean languages I think are really, really fun to sing. Like I know Saeed knows this song, but there's like a classic Turkish song. What is it called? It's called, I think it's called Felaket. 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 Gazunga zunga deyse. Kapar kiyome kiyome. Something. What did she say after? Something buhakale. Down in the air. They done felake. Because be off it. There, I remembered it. Zunga zunga dancing. Kupar kiyome. Anyway, it's a cool language, man. If you're a singer, or a vocalist, or a voice person, whatever your thing is, certain languages feel very fun to use. And maybe I'm just very biased because I don't think super logically of the things that I like that much. Like, what I mean is just like, I analyze the things I like, but my reasons for liking them, I don't have to have like a bunch of logical reasons. Does that make sense? So for example, when I watch Star Wars, I just think it's good fun. Like, is it always the best story? No. Do I have a lot of issues with it? Yes. But I can always kind of go in and just know that I'm going to enjoy it for being kind of lowbrow, like Star Wars stuff. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, that's a good song. Go look that song up. But yeah, like, certain languages just sound and feel very fun to sing. I think good examples of this are Korean. Now, mind you, I'm biased because I grew up around Korean. I grew up around Spanish, which has the same vowels. And I just like the culture a lot. So, and I'm kind of also cheating in the sense that I don't think any other country blew up more based on their music being catchy more than Korea. I mean, K-pop is like, I don't think people understand how big K-pop is. Like, there's been a couple of times I'll post K-pop on my like Twitter, and I'll have like 30 fucking replies from like random Twitter K-pop like groups. Well, they'll post like fucking full image, like, I don't even know what they are, AMVs, I guess. Like, it'll be like a certain band, and it'll be like a montage of them and shit. Like, when I discovered this on Twitter, I was like, what the fuck? Like, the fandom is insane. And it gets so crazy that like I've even met like European women that are like, I want a Korean boyfriend, and start learning all like the, you know, the little, and they learn all that stuff so they can like be a part of the culture and stuff. It's just, K-pop is catchy, and it's very ingratiating. It is kind of cat. Hiko. It's cat. Let's be honest. And Hiko Cholo is a hilarious name, by the way, because it makes you sound Japanese and Cholo like me. Hiko Cholo is a great ass name. I was into J-pop, but then yeah. So to be clear, I'm so old that I listened to Boa. For people that don't know, Boa is like the first artist that got big out of Korea. I did not know she was like the founding fucking mother of K-pop, guys. When I was a kid, I was obsessed with Boa because I watched Inuyasha. Anyone here in chat knows exactly what song I'm talking about. Ikutsu yamina nagasitana. Every heart. Na 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 na. I don't remember the fucking rest of the song. Ikutsu It was the second ending of Inuyasha. I think it's the second or third ending. The soundtrack in Inuyasha is fucking incredible, but the second ending is literally a Boa song. Like, how fucking insane is that? That and now in hindsight, an anime back then had basically like the Michael Jackson of K-pop. But anyway, I was listening to her randomly, and I was saying, yeah, first K-pop star to find success outside of Korea, and part of it is that she could speak Japanese, which I don't know if even most people know that, but I'm able to speak both languages and sing in both. And I was like, and instead of me feeling like I was like this cool, like I was a part of the beginning of it all, it just made me feel old. Because I was like, I remember listening to Boa back then when the internet barely worked, and being like, damn, this K-pop stuff, because it wasn't K-pop, it was just music, right? Korean music. Was like, this is pretty good, you know? Yeah, I think it's kind of strange though, and maybe you guys have picked up on this, that the soundtracks kind of have gotten worse. And I know I'm gonna sound very edgy here, but here's my argument. It's because music rights have always been draconic, but they've gotten more draconic over time, in my opinion. Like maybe anime is not nearly as much, but I'm just saying, like, look at some of the bands that are playing in like early animes. They're major bands. Like even Japanese band, like they're major bands. And now, like, I think you get a lot more of like the pop, more modern bands. So maybe people know them in a more modern context. Oh, I know. What's the one that did Ikuze? That FMA. They've done a bunch of songs. Like, yeah, they're amazing, but it's like, but then if you go and find someone else, and it's like they'll have one catchy song. You look up the anime song, and it's like the only song that band plays. That's just an observation I've made myself. Compared to like back then, you would find like a group that did like 4 or 5 hits, and even anime hits that would be pretty big and like successful. That's just kind of what I've noticed and I think it's because maybe in the late 90s and early 2000s, these started to become more lucrative deals, and so now it's like the bigger bands are expecting more money to get involved, and maybe the smaller bands are like, hey, we're new, we got one hit, you know, let us get involved. So I kind of get it, but I've just noticed that, like, man, some of the soundtracks for some of these old anime are like insanely good, and it's because you look at the bands, and the bands are like the best band in Japan at the time, you know, like. '80s anime music is my jam. Yeah, honestly, I'm red pilled on anime. As much as I love Korean, the language and the culture, anime music is Japanese, and it's pretty amazing. If I'm being honest. It's so expressive, and like my favorite. I'll play you guys some of my favorites, and then I'm gonna head out. I'm such a nerd that I even know the lyrics for the ones that I like. All right, can anyone tell me what series this one comes from? We got a One Piece. Classic. Daybreak's Bell. I think the group's called like La Arcadencio. They've made other anime hits before. See, 30th anniversary. They're a long-standing band. This is what I'm saying, is like you'll find bands like this every now and then that for some reason make anime music. and they're like famous for it, but more in the modern times, you don't see this as much. It's oftentimes they've got like one song record or something. Yeah, I mean, look at this. This is like Japanese punk. No wonder why I like it. I love punk music. Oh man, that's a good one, Said. I'm going for that one. I know people love Japanese anime, but if you didn't grow up listening to the English theme song, you'll never know what this feels like to hear. This is like goosebumps when you hear this.
Fighting evil by moonlight, winning love by daylight, never running from a real fight. She is the one named Sailor Moon. She will never turn her back on a friend. She is always there to defend. She is the one on whom we can depend. She is the one named Sailor.
Jupiter's the best.
Sailor Mercury, Sailor Mars, Sailor Jupiter. Secret powers are so new to her. She is the one named Sailor Moon.
Anyway, old anime is so fucking good. Yeah, the US opening is good. It's another thing, again, I know it's fashionable to hate on dubs, and many dubs do suck, but the age of the early 90s and late 2000s, or early 2000s, late 90s rather, has an insane track record. And I'll give you an idea, or an example. Everyone always talks about Gundam Wing in Japanese, but this is the first, English opening. And this is another one that only is accessible in the English one. Ready? The Cartoon Network, you see it? The best part. I mean, dude, maybe we're growing up listening to this shit, like, what the fuck? This is the soundtracks we were listening to as kids. Shit's insane. You know, I haven't listened to the new version either, but I watched the old one religiously. And for people who haven't seen it, here's the original intro. It's god tier. Is this the remake? Oh shit! It's so goosebump inducing. Alright, let me restart because you guys got to see the whole thing unfold. Dude, this is probably my favorite intro. If I'm, look, you can see the look on my face. X-Men 97 is probably my favorite superhero anything. And if I'm being honest, I don't think it's close. Alright, check this out. This shit's amazing, dude. Never not cool watching. I was spoiled to watch this as a kid. I'm very happy. You guys want to know the craziest thing is about this anime too? Or animated series? Back in the day, before they knew how long series would be around, they came out swinging in the first couple of seasons. First couple episodes of animated series. Anyone in the chat can back me up on this. All the top animated series back in the 90s were putting out bangers as their first fucking episodes. Cowboy Bebop, Fully Cooley, Trigun, X-Men, you name it. All of these games or animes and shows were putting out bangers as the first, second, third. Dude, Days of Future Past is like the what? The fucking 7th episode or some shit? It's like X-Men 97 covers so much shit in the comics immediately. Juggernaut, I think, is the second fucking episode or third episode. Gundam X OP was also pretty good. Yeah, Gundam has a lot of good OPs. Definitely a strength of the series. Excuse me. OG's way better. Yeah. This shit's so stuck on And plus you get access to X-Men 97. I'm gonna sell you guys on it. I'm gonna red pill you guys on it like very easily, very quickly. You ready? Southern Belle Rogue, who is thick as can be. No particular order. You get Occasion Gambit, which, when's the last time you've heard of Occasion character, let alone Occasion superhero? You get Mr. Beast, the best version of him in my opinion. He's fully committed to being a beast, but he's still a genius, so he constantly breaks the mold of what you expect from him. Rogue has amazing scenes and she is not timid at all. She's probably one of the main characters, I would argue, and one of like the main movers. Cyclops is Cyclops. I'll be honest, I'm probably not going to red pill you much on Cyclops for the series. He kind of fits his role. He's a better leader in X-Men 97, so he makes you like him more compared to like maybe the movie renditions of him, because sometimes he can be a twat in the movies. But yeah, Scott's a character, like Maghorn made this point, Scott's a character that oftentimes doesn't come across very well. So X-Men 97, I'm not going to give you an idea that he's going to get glowed up there. He's not. Magneto, if you're used to Magneto in the more evolved sense, you might feel like this is a regression of Magneto, but this is more advanced Magneto who's more stuck in the way of doing things. This is the most powerful Magneto by far. Like, I was shocked how much more powerful 97 Magneto is compared to the X-Men movies when I saw them in theater, because I was just like, man, this is cool, like him doing the bullet scene and everything, but like in X-Men 97, anyone can back me up here, doesn't he actually affect the like electromagnetic waves as well? Because it's not just like the metal, but he actually can affect electromagnetic shit too, so it's like his powers are like so like way more fucking advanced. Xavier is you know, he's more neutral, which makes him a bit more likable because he's a little bit less preachy in some ways. But I don't know, I think people probably like Xavier in the movies. Jean Grey. Who else can I sell you on? The action scenes are amazing. Wolverine is, in my opinion, I'm biased as fuck, but this is the best version of Wolverine. He is arrogant, doesn't even want to be there half the time, but he's there because, you know, these guys helped him, you know, he's with them, like, blah, blah, like, and he constantly gets into squabbles. Gambit with Cyclops, it doesn't matter, like. So Wolverine is very entertaining. He dons the yellow suit. So if you're going to watch the Deadpool Wolverine movie, you should probably watch this series first so you can understand why many of us fans love the yellow suit so much. Because oftentimes the old Wolverine fans, or the new Wolverine fans, are like, why do you all like this yellow suit so much? You had to have been there. If you were there in X-Men 97, you'll learn why we love the yellow suit so much. First off, one of the most famous memes of all... Actually, take this back. Not just one, but this is something that I never thought about until much later on again because I watched it as a kid. X-Men 97 has some of the best memes, period. Like, if you go watch it, guys, you're going to be like this the whole time. I know that reference. I know that reference. There are amazing memes. Everyone knows what this one I'm going to show is going to be. You have to. It's even better when you watch it in the series. Like, no cap. That shit always makes me. Beyblade intro. Another good one. Beyblade, let it rip. Isn't that the one? Beyblade, let it rip. Alright, on that note, guys, we're at 2 hours. I'm gonna head out. I hope you had a good day, good stream, and I hope you have a good rest of your week. Stay tuned for PlanetSide 1, Death of a Game, and thank you all for stopping by. I will talk to you guys later. Peace. Where is this thing?